I'm Alex Anderson. Today we're taking quilting to the mountaintops. We'll show you a version of Delectable Mountains that has been simplified by using a rotary cutter. Plus, what stories would we hear if quilts could talk? We'll visit a quilt museum in Colorado to find the stories behind the quilts. We're taking to the hills on today's Simply Quilts. Welcome to Simply Quilts. Why do you make quilts? Perhaps it's simple to keep your loved ones cozy at night, or perhaps your quilt is a message for generations to come. In the Rocky Mountain town of Golden, Colorado, there's a museum that highlights quilts with stories to tell. When you visit Golden, Colorado, it may feel as though you've taken a trip back in time, where modern-day cars contrast storefronts reminiscent of the past. Quilt lovers will find a golden nugget here too, the Rocky Mountain Quilt Museum.
What we have here is a collection of various quilts from different parts of the country, different time frames, and people that made them or collected them for a variety of purposes.
This exhibit, Colorado Voices in Patchwork and Cloth, is a collection of 23 quilts, and they all have something to say.
I guess when we all speak, we have a particular meaning or story that we want to convey to someone. And I think that's kind of what this exhibit is doing. Each one of these quilts was made for a purpose by a person that had a passion for either the design or, for instance, the fabric that was in there maybe came from a family member.
In addition to sharing the beauty of the quilts, the museum's mission is to document as many as possible.
We get quite a few quilts that we look at to consider for adding to our collection. And many times people just bring them in and say, oh, it was my grandmother's or someone in the family. But they don't know anything about it, where it was made, when it was made. To us, that isn't as valuable as having a quilt that's got some provenance or history that goes with it.
Like this quilt, a variation on Grandma's flower garden.
My mother had always quilted a lot, and she had a lot of projects started that she didn't have finished. And when we moved her out of her apartment, we found all these things. I took them home and started trying to figure out what to do with them.
The result, a multi-generational effort called Donna's Flower Garden.
This quilt in particular is quite meaningful because not only did my mother start it, and I've worked on it, my two granddaughters also did some of the sewing on it.
Travel was an inspiration for some of the quilts in this exhibit.
Walkabout is a quilt made by Judith Traeger that captures her memories of a trip that she took several years ago to Australia. I can see a few boomerangs, you know, the footprints of the people out in the backcountry. That piece in the center could be maybe a little lake. That red streak could be a river running into it.
If museum founder Eugenia Mitchell's quilt could talk, it would tell stories as colorful as the fabric. She calls it her Halley's Comet signature quilt. It highlights the hundreds of people she met while on a cross-country bus trip. Others let their quilts depict a natural appreciation.
I like to do designs about specifically Colorado and the scenery around us. I'm a native of Colorado, and I like to portray what I see and what I love. This quilt is called Mountain Wildflower Sampler. It's a collection of wildflowers that I have seen on our many family camping, hiking, biking trips throughout the Colorado Rockies. I like the fact that it's something tangible that I can leave behind, that shows how I view the world and what I think is important, what's special about my world.
So, the next time you see a beautiful quilt, Listen carefully for the voices in patchwork and cloth. And always keep in mind, it's really important to document the stories behind your quilts. When we come back, we'll go from the rugged Rocky Mountains to some quilted Delectable mountains. Stay with us. Welcome back to Simply Quilts. There's usually more than one way to complete any task, and that's certainly true when making traditional block patterns. The book So Many Stars takes several blocks and simplifies them with quick piecing techniques. Please welcome the author, Gail Searle. Gail, welcome to Simply Quilts.
Thank you, Alex. I'm glad to be here today.
Well, we are delighted that you're here. You are a certified national quilt instructor. Wow, what exactly does that mean? That's big, Gail.
It just means that I wanted to know if my students were getting the same type of education that students around the United States were getting. And it was a wonderful time to learn about color and design and history and all the techniques involved with quilting.
It's quite extensive, isn't it? It's no small thing.
It takes over a year to complete. It's done on an honor code, and also it's worth college credit, which makes it extra nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Today we'll be working on Delectable mountains. That's a mouthful, you know?
Yes, it is. It's delectable.
Let's look at the quilt you brought in the center. It's got two kinds. Tell us about them.
Yes, it's got the traditional block in the center, Alec, and it's got what I call the faux delectable on the borders because it's a lot of fun to make.
How many different kinds are there?
There are several different kinds, and as you go back in history and see the different blocks, you'll discover that the star changes, the technique changes, there are many changes, and there's only a few things that characterize this block.
You've brought some blocks.
Yes.
Tell us about them.
This is a traditional block, and it's set square. This is the block that we see most often, and it's set on point.
Traditional?
Traditional. And this is a contemporary block, and the interesting thing about this, done with the half squares and the triangle, is that sometimes the block is only shown as a quarter of the block. And so it's one more variation of the Delectable mountain.
Can you put that back there a second, please?
Surely.
That looks like a bear's paw.
It does, except that the traditional Delectable has this wonderful little corner design that is a result of the originals having been done in rows. So that when I put a Delectable in rows and it would go around all four sides, I end up with this wonderful little configuration up there, and that makes it Delectable.
What will we be working on first today?
Well, today I'd like to show you a slice technique for the Delectable mountains that is a very fast technique, and it's a technique that I believe that the people used originally.
All right, so this is traditional.
I hope so.
All right, let's start with the block.
Okay, this is the Delectable, but it's only half. And the thing about this, it can be put on a grid. It's just 4 across, 4 down, and it makes a positive-negative design. In other words, the balance is perfect between the two colors. This is half of the design, so the other half is a mirror image of the first half.
Right.
When I'm working with this, I'll take my templates and make a separate row for cutting the design for that particular template to make it extra fast.
Okay, so this template then would relate to this row.
That's right.
This to this.
That's correct.
And so forth.
You bet.
All right. Then what?
Well, then we'd move over and I'd make the 2 slices of fabric. And the thing that makes it fast is to use bias down here and straight of grain up here. And the reason for doing that, Alec, is that in order to get the correct configuration up here, I have to have a triangle at the top. So I have to have room on that top to make the triangle. And I will have a triangle that's sliced here and a slice that comes off the end of my triangle. And I can show that to you.
Can you bring over the pattern so everybody can follow
bet.
this one here? Let's put it on top so we can
one.
show exactly what we're going for.
The nice thing about this is when I'm putting that on, I'll make this just the perfect size for this so that this corner would come to the edge
Okay.
of the pattern, and then I wouldn't actually have to measure it at
Now-
all. And then I would cut straight across.
Do you take this off before you cut, or do you leave it on?
Well, if I've pre-measured it for this to be the correct length, I don't need to have the template at all.
All right.
And that makes it fast. And so let's pretend that I have already done that. And I would cut this with the blade across like this. And when I come up here, I need a triangle. And again, this is very easy. You don't have to measure. And I'd use a small mat so I could move that mat around. So this is a little bit
Now,
awkward.
let me get out of the way.
Eek. There.
Okay.
And this then is the first piece in the center, and I'm showing both pieces sewn together. So it makes the square and one on either side that will be mirror images.
So we just made this one,
Just-
and then you want mirror on this side.
That's right.
All right.
And this is the center. And then I'll continue to move out. If I'm making the opposite side, I can cut this way. If I want to make it even faster, I'll fold it over so that when I'm cutting the mirror image at the same time.
Now, when you're cutting this next strip, which is that right? That one? It's the wrong, there we go,
No.
like that, right?
Okay.
Would you use this strip, or would you create another strip?
I would create another strip because you saw how easy it was to cut it across the bottom. And that way I don't have to have any measurements because I'm only matching the bottom. And you can imagine how the women with treadle sewing machines
Oh.
enjoyed that. They just treadled away and continued piecing as they went.
Then what?
Then I need to, after sewing them together, to have two on either side of a center panel, and then I need triangles on the outside. And my square, I use the 1 1/4 technique
Right,
for making
quarter square.
quarter square. I slice diagonally twice like an X, and I sew those onto two sides. And then I finish with a star in the center, and it's very fast.
Great. There's a whole new way of looking at the mountains. Coming up next. Welcome back, I'm Alex Anderson. We're halfway up the trail of our Delectable Mountains pattern with quilt instructor Gail Searle. Gail, how do you come up with these great quick techniques?
Part of it is just looking at the block itself, but old quilts sometimes give the clue, and oftentimes borders give the best example because we tend to use leftover blocks in our borders.
And are you a mathematician?
No, far from it.
I'm not either, and I find quilters oftentimes weren't in high school, but we fooled the teacher, right?
Well, yes, we all wish we had paid attention.
Right. This is the block we're working on. And before we went to break, you showed us how to do this section. So obviously you have to do this section. And then what's the difference with these two?
Well, on this section, Alex, I've added the triangles. These are the first two that will be sewn to the center. And this is a very easy match because the center is 6 inches. Each one of these is 1 inch, and it fits perfectly. And then this will roll to the side.
Perfect.
And it fits, and the block is complete.
What about the center?
The center is very easy because you've actually pre-sewn these pieces. If you remember, Alex, when we divided the half square into 4 pieces, the leftover piece was the final template that had the short legs on it. And I will show that there's a little bit of difference in that. I left this separate because I've measured perfectly for the technique to work for this little fella here.
Okay.
So my template would have fit there, and I'm going to show you that I can make the mirror image at the same time with this by actually cutting it in one step.
You notice how fast I get my
helps with a
fingers out of the
blade.
way?
Yes, it helps to have a blade. So
Okay.
here is my block, and when I open them, I then have to cut across here, and whoops, this is not where I'm cutting. I'm cutting
There.
across there, and I'm cutting across here.
And that gives you this
That
piece
gives
right
the
here.
4 pieces, and so there's no difficulty in this. Then
So-
I add the blocks, putting the dark side out, which is the triangle, and the block is done just very fast.
Let's direct the border now. The border, you have some really great techniques for that, quick. And is it difficult?
No, not at all, and it's fun.
Okay, well, it looks really great on the quilt, and you promise it's easy.
It's awfully easy.
Okay, let's get going on the border.
On the border, everyone knows how to make half squares, so 2 squares. Let's review. Diagonal line, 1/4 inch on either side. It makes 2 triangles, which we then press open. So I take my 2 triangles, turn them so that I've formed a mountain over here. And my peak goes up. I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces. Now I could do this in equal pieces, but I've allowed a slight amount on one to make sure that my cuts are the same. I'm cutting 1, 2, 3 sets, and the final set I won't need. So here we have it right here.
Should we take these away then?
Let's take those
Okay.
away. Now, this is the foxy part. When you had 1 through 8, you now reverse them.
Oh, look at
and
that.
See that the block is coming together as a Delectable mountain block.
That is great. So that's what we have laid out here. We'll take away these ones too.
Those are the ones that we don't need.
Okay.
And now in sewing them, we sew from the center. Those 2 are together. Then the 2 outside pieces I join. And then all 3 come together to make the block, which I call Faux Delectable. Now the difference between a real and a fake is the difference between the peak of the mountain and the valley. But sometimes our desire to be so perfect in quilting gets in our way, and you can have a lot of fun with a fake as well as with a real.
Here you have a variation using the fakes, I guess for lack of better words. Is there anything you need to keep in mind if you'd like to make that variation?
Well, if you want to use this technique for making a block, you'd have to offset these because you lose the seam allowance, the distance between your points, but that is easy to do.
Okay, so this wouldn't work. Let's take a look. If you'd like trim this off.
If you trimmed it off,
Oh, that does look kind of weird, doesn't it?
it isn't in balance with the rest of the star. The star will balance on a diagonal basis like that.
So it's simply a matter of shifting it a little bit?
It's a matter of shifting the peaks up, stair-stepping on both sides, and then trimming even and to get that particular configuration.
This is great information. You've really taken this whole Delectable Mountains thing to a whole new level.
Well, there are at least 5 ways to make this block, and it's a matter of picking out your favorite block, Alex.
We've reached the summit of our quilted mountains, and we'll look at some other variations when we return.
Information about the products or projects on today's episode is available by visiting our website at hgtv.com or by calling 865-694-7879 Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Please note today's episode number.
Welcome back to Simply Quilts. We're looking at some delectably easy techniques with our guest, Gail Searle. Gail, do these techniques really save you much time?
Oh, they surely do. You can save as much as half to 2/3 depending on the block, and that's what we all need is more time. And actually, I think this is what our grandmothers and great-grandmothers needed too, was time.
I get letters from people and they say, I just don't have enough time. Well, no kidding, none of us do. It's horrible. All these great quilts inside and no time to do it.
That's right. We'll never get to make as many quilts as we would like.
They're in our dreams.
That's right.
The quilt that you brought, Rocky Mountain High, you made, is beautiful. Tell us about that quilt.
This quilt was made just for fun because it uses the faux technique for the Delectable Mountains. And I emphasize the peaks in this by putting a strip between the blocks so that they're even sharper and more angular. It was quilted with several different patterns by Vi Russell of Billings.
Well, both of you did a beautiful job.
Thank you.
Great Northern Star, tell us about that quilt.
Great Northern Star has a Delectable mountain row. It's a row or strip technique for this block. It was made, or quilt, it was made by Lynn Ward, and it uses paper piecing with Seminole techniques.
And who quilted it?
That was quilted by Vi Russell also.
Vi's pretty good, isn't
Yes,
she?
she's very talented.
That's also using, like you said, the faux technique, but it has a star in it, which is similar to the star in Exquisite.
A little bit alike. That's a hexagon star. This is a simple star that appears to float across the quilt as if it's being blown by the wind, and it is a 4-patch star.
It is beautiful. Let's show everybody the inside secret. Are you willing to share?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
This is an old-fashioned pattern. It's usually seen set with every block being surrounded, and the change of fabrics turn the stars into the pattern.
So that's one block.
But that's one.
This is the other. And then there's one last block, which is just a square.
It's a very easy, and it's fun because it's a color play. Where do you want which color? It should be grafted to get the color just exactly where you want it.
Log cabin star quilt is wonderful. We like stars. We have good taste, right?
Yes. This one, did I tell you, was made by Laura Landstead, and again, it was quilted by Vi Russell.
Exquisite, right?
Exquisite.
Yeah. Okay, now the other star, the log cabin star. Tell us about that quilt.
This is a two-block star that I designed so that I could use a log cabin technique for both stars, Alex. The Aunt Eliza star has been updated. I call her Auntie Jane because it is so fast. It's a strange little technique that I developed to make that very quickly. It sits in the middle of another log cabin, and it's fast.
Now, I can't believe you really didn't get A's in math.
No, I surely didn't, but my quilters should have. This is made by Leela King, and again, this was quilted by Gloria Badgett.
Thank you so much for coming today. Your work is beautiful, and keep coming up with those techniques.
Thank you very much for having me.
We appreciate it. Don't you just love good quilting shortcuts? They give you more time to finish the quilts that wrap your family and friends in love. We'll see you next time on Simply Quilts.
Learn how to add a little magic to your Halloween when Decorating with Style has tricks to make jack-o'-lantern hurricanes and inexpensive masks. Coming up next on HGTV Daytime.